Yes, indeed. Doing
All
great,
right.
Steve. How are you today?
We're fantastic. We are ready to rock. I didn't see Kate jump on actually. So maybe she is struggling with a connection. I didn't touch base with her this morning. So I don't know if we'll have Kate with us. Hopefully, she will bring down the legal Thursday for us. Um, what's going on with you guys? Somebody have something going on a transaction? Something you learned? Something we can open up with? This is supposed to be a show for you guys. I mean, I'm happy to drive, but I would love to discuss what's going on. What's going on personally? What's going on with the market? Are you struggling? What do you need help with? Lauren.
So I have a transaction in negotiations right now that is going to be a short sale. And it's the first time that I've actually represented the buyer in a short sale. Luckily, the agent on the other side and all the parties involved on the other side are very proactive in the situation before they even went to market. They came on at a price that if we get exactly this price with no concessions, no commissions, nothing, um, we could just avoid the short sale. But even like a dollar under this amount, if you're at short sale, they had a negotiator already in place. They were using that price to be on market, even though the original price was way over market value, to kind of help prove the case to the bank on the other side, to the lien holder, that they could not get that price on the open market. So they left it there for a few weeks. They had very intentional points where they were going to be doing reductions. So I think as far as a short sale is going to be negotiated, it's running very smoothly, but it will still be, that longer process because we have additional parties who need to approve everything. It was a learning piece where the buyers are actually responsible for the fee of the short sale negotiator. Yeah, so learning a lot going through this, even though I've like helped people do them. I've never myself actually done one.
Yeah, so a couple of things to talk about there. You started off by saying that they had done some due diligence ahead of time and had a number that you could avoid the short sale. So just want to talk about two different numbers that pop in my head when we talk about that. The first is, hey, look, if I get this number, there is no short sale because I can pay off the mortgage, right? I owe the bank 200, this, that, and the other closing fees, going to be 5 grand. I need 205 that I can walk away from the table with. So is that the kind of number that we were talking about? Is like, hey, we don't even have to get the bank involved because I can pay off the full mortgage at this number?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yep. So, if you've got somebody that's in a tight spot like this, right, the seller net sheet is clearly the way to go. It's got all the little line items for what you need to pay off. You got to pay your listing agent. You got to pay, some taxes, maybe obviously you got to pay the lien. There could be the stamp tax for the sale of the property. There's a bunch of different little things that can come up that it's going to cost you. So the second thing that can happen is if you know it's going to be tight, you can go to the bank and ask them what their number is going to be. Hey, um, I know I owe you 200,000 on this property. Market is shaping up like the comps are saying we're going to get 190 for it. Um, would you take the 190? So you could come to market with a short sale. So it's short. So in the first scenario, it's not a short sale, right? We've avoided it completely because we did not have to go to the bank and say we don't have enough funds. So in the second scenario, we are I guess guaranteeing that the bank is going to allow a number that's less than what they owe. So sometimes when we were in the heat of short sales back in the day, that is what the number one priority would try to be: is what can we get from the bank in writing that they're willing to accept before we even start to market this? Because what happens with a lot of buyers is they just don't have time to wait. or they don't understand how long it might take because we had banks taking 30 days to make a decision, or 90 days, or 120 days, or 180 days. So you need a buyer that's willing to wait for the bank to make their decision. It was really frustrating when we were in the heat of it. So at this point, Lauren, let's just kind of try and look forward into the future here about what's going to happen. So you and the seller have agreed on a number, and we're waiting to hear from the bank now.
That's
Yeah, and we have no idea what the bank is going to say. Nothing's ever been presented previously to the bank. This is the first the bank is hearing of it.
Yep. Yep. So this is the bank has not approved any sort of a number yet on what they would accept. They wanted to see what they would potentially get for an offer to be able to make that decision. Luckily, the buyers in this situation have kind of unlimited time. They don't have to be out of where they currently are. So it's something that, everybody's willing to wait on. They are willing to go slightly above what we offered, even in order to get it, because they really like the property. But we kind of went really aggressive with the number that we put out there. So. Second thing I will mention, per advice of the short sale negotiator, because the buyer was responsible for, in this case, it is 3% of the purchase price to the short sale negotiator. They said, ask for that 3% back as a concession as part of your offer to kind of help offset it. Commissions for both sides were worked into the contract with the short sale negotiator, right? So commissions will be covered for both agents out of it, but there is that fee due to the negotiator, and so they suggested, and we did write in equal to that percentage back as a credit for part of the contract.
So a couple of things to keep in mind here, Lauren. And I don't know if you've got this kind of information, but this is the kind of things that you want to know when you represent the buyer. Is there a hardship going on? Because typically without a hardship, and maybe somebody can say otherwise if you've seen it happen, the bank's not going to just say, yeah, no problem. Right? If a seller has the funds, they have a job, and they just don't want to have to pay, a lot of times the banks are going to say, sorry, right? You owe us the money. Right? Now, if the bank looks at it and goes, they lost their job, one of the family members is severely ill, like they don't see any future potential for income, due to a legitimate hardship, then the bank might come along and say, hey, you know what? Like we should just cut our losses now. Right? So do you have any information like that on this one, Lauren? Do you know why?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So actually, both parties that currently own the property, I'm not sure what industry they are that they work in, but they both lost their positions this year. And they actually tried for a long time to find work around here that would be in related fields, or then kind of just anything. And they were not able to. The only place they were able to find work within their industry is out of state at much lower price point or pay rate, that they were able to get for the same positions they currently had. And so they've been out of work for a bit of time, but have all of kind of the record of them trying to gain employment again. So we do have a hardship in place here.
Yeah. So that's a big deal, right? If I'm representing the buyer and I know that information going in, I might be going to my buyer, hey, this is something that we might want to hang around and see if they're willing to do this. If nothing's been presented, there's no hardship. My guess is we're wasting, 30, 60, 90 days of our search time. So now, if a buyer loves it enough and they understand that, then let's move forward and wait and see what happens. Right? Anybody else want to just chime in kind of where we are in the process here, of anything else to kind of keep in mind, or something that you saw in a short sale if you've done one? So the next thing, if nobody has anything to chime in on, that I think about in these deals, is who's going to pay for what and when, right? So The buyer could right now do inspection, get an appraisal, everything looks good, and the bank comes back and says, "Sorry, we're not doing the short sale." So now the buyer is out those funds. Right? That's option one. Option two is the buyer holds off on those types of things. We wait until we get the approval, so nobody has to spend any money, right? But from the seller's standpoint, right, if the seller had multiple offers and one person's willing to spend the money and do it up front and wait, and the other person isn't, right? Because now if Lauren's people wait, save their money, we get approval on the short sale, then they do inspections and they back out. Now the seller's kind of stuck, right? So I'm curious, Lauren, how did this one play out?
So we are going to do inspections up front, because they want to know kind of early on if they are going to move forward or not. They are okay with the fees and accepting those fees for this particular property. If anything does happen and they don't move forward, I understand, that won't be the position of everybody, but in this case, that's what they made the decision on.
Okay. And sometimes we could go halvesies, right? Hey, we'll do inspections. We're not spending money on appraisal, right? Until you get this approved, like we're not going to do the appraisal piece, but we will do inspections. So have you guys negotiated? I don't know if you said it, Lauren, what's going to happen at appraisal? Are they doing that money up front as well?
That's actually one we did not negotiate as part of it, but I think that that's a fee that if we get to that point, since our contingency dates are so far out anyways, that we'll approach and handle when we kind of get there.
Yep. Anybody have any other questions on the short sale process? Thinking through timelines? These are the types of deals where we really have got to set the expectations right, because this could be, do you have any idea right now, Lauren? Have they given you any kind of a timeline? Hey, we'll have a decision for you in 30 days, anything?
We did 60 days was estimate. They said likely some point in June, best estimate for us.
Yeah. It always like boggled my mind, like that's the bank. Like, what is taking so long to make a decision, right? I mean, typically I would think you got, if it's a smaller bank, maybe you got a board meeting, and you got to wait for that monthly board meeting to happen. I served on the board of a local credit union, and I could see that kind of being the type of a thing where, hey, here's the situation. It gets laid out, and maybe the board is going to make a decision on, do we want to do this or do we not want to do this? Right? Depending on the size of the bank or credit union. But these larger banks, they've got a department that handles these. And right now, we're not seeing a ton of short sales. So for me, it's like we should be able to get a decision. It's like submit the docs. Is there anything else that you guys want to see? Here's our hardship. Here's our reasoning. We've got a negotiator involved. Great. So I never understood what would take these guys so long. But it can be excruciating just sitting there and waiting for the buyer. And that's why setting the expectations that, this could be 60, 90 days, because or else the buyer is going, what the heck did you get me into? Why aren't we hearing? It's been 60 days, it's been 90 days. Like, you didn't tell me about this. And now this other property just came on the market that we want to make an offer on. So, any other thing coming to mind or questions that you guys might have on short sale? All right. What else we got? What's going on out there? Let's get something interesting. Just talk to me about your deals. Well, let's dissect them. Lauren, what do you got?
I was gonna say I can go with another one.
Yeah.
So I have recently gotten a couple people all very much in the same price point, looking in the same area. And I know that we have a lot of agents who do kind of focus and work in one area more than another. And when you get multiple clients that are all shopping in that same price bracket, you're going to be in the same properties kind of again and again. You are going to know that there's a decent chance that more than one person is going to like a similar property. And I know we've talked about this before, handling offers for multiple clients yourself on the same properties, but even just shopping in the same market can get a little funny when you have a couple people right at the same price point looking for similar criteria.
Yeah, I mean, anybody have any kind of strategies? What are you doing when those scenarios happen? Anything that you're treating differently? Anything that you're saying differently? For me, I was always just pretty open with my clients. Hey, you know what? I just showed this yesterday to another buyer client of mine. You know, they actually loved it. They're considering writing an offer, or you know what? They didn't love it because of X. So for me, I didn't really keep it secret that I had another client that was looking. I just kind of was just open with my clients. Likewise, I might show it to one client who's kind of like, yeah, we kind of like it. I don't know. And I might be getting back in the car and calling another client to be like, hey, I just showed this to, Susie and John, and they're kind of him and hawing, but man, I think it'd be a really good fit for you guys. you know Now, if one of the clients was like, hey, this is our dream home, you're probably not going to go and call your other clients. But I don't know, it depends. How long you've been working with those other clients, right? You have a duty to all of these clients, right? So it can be delicate. Stacy.
So I have that a lot here in Boston. We have a lot of I feel like a lot of people graduate from the schools around here and they're all like in their late 20s looking at the same exact, and I have it today actually. I'm showing three different condos and they're all like in their late 20s, but it's nice because you can say like, "Oh, you let me know that you wanted this type of whatever amenity at these condominiums around Boston, but this one doesn't have it." So it's actually really nice to have been in a lot of the buildings prior, so then when I'm lining up buyer showings, it's just so much easier to explain. And they're like, all right, forget it. I don't want to see that one. So it's good to yeah, just get out there and see so many different units and try to match them with people. It's nice to you're kind of like ahead of the game.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for me, when you're doing condos, especially, you gotta, and if you're newer and you haven't been into these complexes, you gotta get in it and you gotta understand because there are differences. They might all be the same price point, but there is going to be differences. One's going to be closer to certain amenities. One might have a gym. One might have a pool. One might have tennis courts. One might allow pets. One might allow multiple pets. You got to know this stuff. So you got to get into these condos and really understand the differences. Chris.
I think if I'm understanding Lauren correctly, I think it's more about like how you're guiding them. Like when they say, "What do you think I should offer? Where do you think I should go?" And then you have multiple clients that are both bidding. I mean, the saving grace sometimes is one client FHA, is one conventional, is there some peeling paint? Do you think there'll be a problem with the peeling paint? Where can one go for their highest? If I know that I have a client, like I got one right now too in Springfield, that gorgeous one Kelsey Thompson just put on. It's amazing for anyone that hasn't seen it. But the thing is, one client can only go to X and the other client can go to X. And the one client's going to go to their X. And so I'm able to say, I did ask my client, like, do you mind? Because I do have another person that wants to put in an offer as well. I want to save their time and their heart and let them know that I already know. And, they said absolutely. So, like, it does get dicey when you have relations with these people, especially when you're putting up, under agreement, I won. And that buyer's like, what the hell? Like, like that would have been mine. So, I get what Lauren's saying. It's just honesty is the best policy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's it right there. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was just gonna say, so now like Chris had mentioned to it and you had spoke to it right as your first comment after I brought this up, is it's the conversations, right? Like we just need to continually be having conversations, tiptoeing around it and not really being open rarely works, right? If you're sharing information that you can either with permission, if it's something to great detail like that, or just being honest, right? I've been in this house 4 times. Like I know there's a lot of interest. I personally have another client that is considering placing an offer on this property. Um, or it's just, I think conversations really is my point there.
And I think the thing that can keep you out of the hot water is making any kind of recommendation on pricing. You provide the comps and you say, hey, look, you could provide comps for that specific property. You can provide market comps. Hey, in this market, in this town, in this zip code, properties are going for X% over the listing price. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you the number that you should be going for. And this is why a buyer's presentation is extremely critical. And I want to take you back to the first time I ever bought a piece of property. It was a condo. We were in a multiple offer situation, and my agent, the buyer's agent, so it was not the listing agent. I had my own representation. We were in multiple offer. I said, "Well, what do I got to do to win this?" She's like, "Well, I can't tell you." And I just felt so defeated. I kind of felt like telling her, "What the hell are you? Why do I have you as my representation if you can't tell me what it's going to take to win this?" If there was a conversation at the buyer's presentation to say, hey, Steve, we could get in a situation like this, and just know I'm not going to be able to tell you the number that wins. Here's what I'll be able to do for you. But at the end of the day, so I would have gone into this whole situation with a different mindset. Now knowing what I know, right? I understand there really wasn't anything she could do. She didn't know what number was going to win it. But in the heat of the moment, I felt like she let me down. And this is a really good agent. So these are the types of things, like, you've got to have buyer presentations. You've got to go through the process. You've got to have them maybe even write a fictitious offer so that they understand the process. So when it's heat of the moment, nobody's feelings are getting hurt. Nobody's stressed out. Like, we've already done this. We've been through this. Any other questions regarding kind of having multiple clients interested in the same property or showing similar properties? Or
That's where escalations come in, Steve, because I always say, like, my crystal ball is broke. I wish I knew, but I don't. It has to be X, has to be the number that you can put your head on your pillow tonight and say, if I lost this house for over this amount, I would be okay. Like, that is a price only you know.
yeah.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's not just that line, but the response to that line. So if because that's my line, you may have learned that from me, Chris. Hey, what's the number that you're going to feel comfortable, going to bed tonight? And then they're going to give me a number, 400,000. Okay. You got to come back with, so if it goes for 401, you're good. Well, so you've got to push that to really understand what is that number that they're going to be really disappointed, because you need to know that number to put them in the best position to win. So don't just accept that first number, push to make sure, right? And give an example. Hey, I don't want you to see that this thing sold for 401. Yeah, and that some number they're going to go, yep, if it sold for 401, 400 was our number, we're good. And now we're good. Nobody should be let down, disappointed, etc. You put your best foot forward, you win some, you lose some, right? We used all the other strategies that we have to try and get our offer accepted, strengthen the offer, etc.
I do have a little funny one, Steve. I put in an offer for a buyer on Sunday, and they've lost out on a couple. It's just been tough out here, especially with these damn ranches. Everybody wants these ranches. But we put this offer in at 325, escalating 2,000 over the highest proven net offer, not to exceed 355. So the agent calls me maybe the day before yesterday, and she says, okay, the highest offer that we have is she's a newer agent, but she's like, the highest offer we have is 335, but they want your 355 because you were willing to go to 355. They want that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you all the things I want right now as well. And it ain't looking good for either of us. I said, so it would bring us to 337. I did go back to the buyer, and they are going to go to 340, kind of giving a little bit of grace there. We went up 5,000 over that offer. But I said, just so you know, what I would have overlooked at the 2,000 over at inspections may not be overlooked at the 5,000 over. So like there's give and take, happening there. So, because the house needs a roof already. I know that off the bat. So they're prepared for that. But if anything above and beyond that comes, they won't be prepared because we don't know about it. But I did think that was kind of cute.
That's great. And that's how you professionally handle a situation like that. You got an inexperienced agent on the other side. We're not going to like take advantage of this. We're just going to lay down long. Hey, look, you know what? I went back to my buyers. I explained the situation to them. I was flat out, right? This is what they want, 355. Hey, you know what? Our number is going to be 340, but then here's what we want in return. Like we were going to kind of just do informational only inspections. We weren't really going to bust your balls. But at whatever now, the new number, 340, like we're probably going to be a little bit more critical, right? So just making sure that we're having this dialogue. And I always loved like this, and I don't know if this was from my brother or whatever, but when you're going in as the buyer's agent, explaining all the stuff that we already know. Hey, the number's 340. I understand that the roof's a little shot. We saw that the hot water heater looks like it's on its last leg. We're taking that into consideration. Did all the other buyers that you have take that into consideration? We understand the HVAC probably needs to replace. That's included in our number, right? Like have the dialogue to just put some doubt. Like, you're aware that hot water heater is probably going to go any day. Any inspector is going to call that out. And if you haven't had this conversation with the other buyers and their agents, like you're going to get knocked down $2-3 grand at inspection time, right? So I'm telling you up front, we're aware of that. We're not going to ask for these things. So
writing that in the offer, in the offer too, Steve, is huge. Yep.
Write it right in there. Aware that hot water tank is on its last leg. HVAC needs to be replaced. We'll not be asking for those things at inspection. 100%. Like these are the little details that you've got to be. This is back to the conversations, setting expectations, right? You as a buyer's agent want to take every little ounce of doubt out of that listing agent that your deal is not going to close and that your number is not going to hold up. Because there's a million ways to get it accepted and then come back and nickel and dime and this and that. So we got time for one more question or one more comment. Anybody else? Like this is the real world stuff, guys, that you're not learning in a class. But it's just so critical that you just bring your story of what's going on with your deal so we can extrapolate this stuff. Doesn't have to be something, super out of the ordinary, right? Chris is just bringing a regular example of a deal she's working on. This is the stuff that if we can just unravel it a little bit, we're going to go down a couple of holes. So would really appreciate just share what's going on in your deals. You might not think there's anything there, but we might start talking about it and you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that, right? Or man, the next time I go to negotiate, I'm going to do these couple of things. But there wasn't anything crazy or wild about either of these stories. I mean, the short sale's a little odd, but just bring your deals to this call so we can dissect these things. So appreciate everybody that did so today. Great call. Let's take a look at what we have for learning opportunities today. We got a few trainings available. New Agent Starter Series, The Journey to Elite. These are agents that are typically doing 28 to 30 transactions at a minimum. What does it take to get you to that level? And then Real Agent Society. So a few different things. Go have an awesome Thursday, and let's finish the week strong tomorrow with our Finance Friday. Take care, you guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
See ya.